Captain Kate Morrison stood in heavy chains before the Galactic Council. The chamber was massive, built to hold hundreds of alien species from across known space. Above her, the council members sat on floating platforms, looking down at her like judges from the old stories. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few looked like living crystals. None of them were human. The lead counselor, a tall creature with 6 arms and skin like purple glass, read the charges. Kate had supposedly broken the non-interference protocol on a protected world. The accusation was a lie. She had asked too many questions about the council's secret trade deals, discovered things they wanted hidden. This trial was their answer. Kate said nothing in her defense. What was the point? The council had already decided her fate before she ever entered this room. She kept her face blank and her shoulders straight. They could take her freedom, but they would not see her beg. The sentence came quickly. Exile to Viridian 7, a Class-8 death world. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Even the hardest species in the galaxy feared Class-8 planets. The gravity alone would crush most beings. The weather could kill in minutes. The predators were things from nightmares. No one survived a Class-8 world. That was the point. Guards dragged Kate from the chamber. She did not resist. Within an hour, she was on a transport ship, heading toward her death. The journey took 3 days. The guards removed her military uniform and gave her worn clothing that barely fit. Her emergency kit was damaged. Half the supplies missing. They gave her a beacon that would activate only when her heart stopped beating. The council wanted proof of her death. Kate spent the journey doing what she always did before a mission. She planned. She studied everything she could access about Viridian 7. The files were thin. Class-8 worlds were not worth detailed study. She learned the gravity was 3 times Earth standard. The atmosphere was breathable but thick. The pressure crushing. Temperature swings could go from boiling to freezing in hours. The files mentioned nothing about intelligent life. On the 3rd day, they reached Viridian 7. The planet filled the viewport, a dark green and brown world wrapped in white storms. The transport captain refused to land. Too dangerous, he said. They would drop her pod from orbit. They sealed Kate in a small escape pod, barely large enough to stand in. Through the small window, she saw the transport pull away. Then the pod released, and she fell toward the planet below. The descent was violent. The pod shook and screamed as it hit the atmosphere. Kate strapped herself tight and watched through the window as the planet rushed up to meet her. She saw endless jungle, mountains that touched the clouds, and storms larger than continents. The pod's heat shield glowed red, then white. Impact came hard. The pod hit the ground and bounced, tumbling through thick vegetation. Kate's head cracked against the wall despite the straps. Metal screamed and tore. Then everything stopped. Silence. Kate tasted blood in her mouth. Every part of her body hurt. She released the straps and tried to stand. The gravity hit her like a physical weight. Her knees buckled. She caught herself on the pod wall, breathing hard. 3 times Earth gravity. Her muscles screamed in protest. The pod door was jammed. Kate kicked it once, twice, 3 times. On the 4th kick, it flew open, and she fell out onto alien soil. The air was thick and hot, heavy in her lungs. She forced herself to her knees, then to her feet. The world spun. She wanted to vomit but held it down. Kate looked around. The pod had carved a path through dense jungle. Strange trees with purple bark stretched toward a sky that was more orange than blue. The plants around her were massive, their leaves as big as her torso. In the distance, she heard sounds. Roars, screams, things she could not identify. She had to move. The crash would attract attention, and not the good kind. Kate pulled what supplies she could from the wrecked pod. The emergency kit, some ration bars, a basic medical pack, and a small knife. Not much to survive a death world. The first day was about finding shelter. Every step was a battle against gravity. Muscles that had carried her through years of military service struggled under the weight. She found a cave as the sun began to set. The temperature was already dropping. Kate gathered what dry material she could find and started a fire with the emergency kit's igniter. Night on Viridian 7 was terrifying. She heard things moving in the darkness outside her cave. Big things. She kept the fire burning and the knife in her hand. Sleep came in brief moments, interrupted by sounds that made her blood run cold. Dawn brought relief and new problems. Kate needed water. She followed the sound of running liquid and found a stream. The water looked clean. But she knew better than to trust appearances. She used her emergency filter, watching the jungle around her. That was when she saw them. Figures moved between the trees. Humanoid, but different. They were shorter than her, built thick and strong. Their skin was dark brown, almost gray. They carried weapons, crude spears and axes made from stone and wood. But she had no doubt they were effective. Kate stood slowly, keeping her hands visible. The figures emerged from the jungle. There were 6 of them. They wore simple clothing, made from animal hides. Their faces were broad with wide-set eyes that studied her with intelligence. The leader stepped forward. He was covered in scars. Each one, a story of survival on this brutal world. He looked at Kate, taking in her strange appearance, her different build, her obvious struggle with the gravity. Kate expected to die right there. Instead, the scarred leader spoke. The language was harsh, full of clicking sounds and deep vowels. She did not understand the words, but she understood the gesture. He pointed at her, then at himself, then at the jungle. The others argued among themselves. Some pointed their weapons at her, others seemed curious. The debate went on for several minutes. Finally, the scarred leader made a decision. He pointed at Kate again, held up his hand with fingers spread, then closed them one by one until only one remained. 1 month. Kate understood. They were giving her 1 month to prove herself. 1 month to show she deserved to live. If she failed, she died. The first week nearly killed Kate. The gravity was relentless, pulling at her bones and muscles every moment of every day. Simple tasks became battles. Walking 50 meters left her gasping for air. Climbing over fallen trees made her muscles scream. But she was military trained, and military training meant you push through pain. She watched the natives from a distance. They moved through the heavy gravity like it was nothing. Their dense bodies built for this world. Kate forced herself to move like them, to adapt her stride, to use the weight instead of fighting it. Slowly, painfully, her body began to change. The scarred leader's name was Dren. Kate learned this by listening, by watching their interactions. The natives called themselves the Keth. They lived in a village of simple huts made from the purple trees and animal hides. Kate counted maybe 40 individuals in Dren's group. The Keth watched her too. Some kept their distance, suspicious of this strange creature that fell from the sky. Others were curious. They saw her struggle with tasks they found easy, but they also saw her refuse to give up. That meant something to them. Kate used her emergency kit carefully. She purified water using the filter and local materials she found. She created better tools from stone and wood, applying human engineering to Keth materials. The knife from her kit became a template. She made cutting tools, digging tools, tools for building. The Keth noticed. On the 8th day, a Keth child approached Kate's shelter. She was young, maybe 10 in human years, with bright, curious eyes. She pointed at the tools Kate had made, then at her own worn knife. Kate understood. She spent the afternoon showing the child how to shape stone more effectively, how to bind a handle for better grip. The child's name was Kara. She came back the next day with questions. Then, the day after that. Soon, other young Keth joined her. Kate found herself teaching. Without planning to, she showed them how to make better shelters that shed rain more effectively, how to preserve food using salt from dried lake beds, how to treat small wounds with local plants that had antiseptic properties. Dren watched but said nothing. Kate knew she was being tested. The real test came on day 15. A rival clan attacked Dren's village just before dawn. Kate woke to screams and the clash of weapons. She grabbed her knife and ran toward the sound. her body protesting every step. The raiders numbered maybe 20, armed with spears and axes. They had caught Dren's people off guard. The Keth fought back fiercely, but with no coordination. It was individual combat, warrior against warrior, with no thought to tactics or positioning. Kate saw the pattern immediately. The raiders were pushing toward the village center where the food stores were kept. If they took those, Dren's people would starve. She shouted at the nearest Keth warriors, trying to communicate through gestures. They stared at her in confusion. No time for language barriers. Kate ran to a group of 5 Keth defenders and physically pushed them into position. She pointed at the raiders' left flank, made a circling motion with her hand. One of the warriors, a large male, seemed to understand. He barked orders to the others. Kate took another group and positioned them to defend the food stores. She showed them how to use the huts as cover, how to force the raiders into a narrow space where numbers meant nothing. The Keth caught on quickly. They were warriors. After all, they just needed someone to show them a different way to fight. The battle turned. The raiders found themselves trapped between 2 groups of defenders, unable to use their numbers. Several fell. The rest retreated into the jungle. The whole fight lasted maybe 10 minutes. Dren approached Kate as the Keth tended their wounded. He looked at her for a long moment, then touched his fist to his chest. The other warriors did the same. Kate understood. She had proven herself. She was no longer just a strange alien on borrowed time. She was a warrior who had fought beside them. That night, they invited her to their fire. Dren spoke to her in the Keth language, slow and clear. Kate picked out words she had learned from Kara. Dren was explaining something about clans, about fighting, about the way things had always been. Kate listened carefully. She was beginning to understand their world. The Keth were divided into many clans, each one fighting the others for resources, territory, food, water. Everything was conflict. They had been fighting this way for generations, maybe longer. It was all they knew. As Kate sat by that fire, surrounded by warriors who no longer wanted to kill her, an idea began to form. It was dangerous. Probably impossible. But Kate had never been good at accepting impossible. The next morning, she approached Kara. The young Keth had become something like her assistant, helping translate and explain things Kate did not understand. Kate drew in the dirt with a stick. Simple pictures. Different groups of Keth. Arrows showing them fighting. Then the same groups, but the arrows pointing outward at dangers instead of at each other. Kara frowned at the drawings. She spoke rapidly, shaking her head. Kate caught enough words to understand. Clans do not work together. That is not the way. It has never been the way. Kate pointed at the drawing again, then at Kara, then at herself. She drew a human and a Keth standing side by side. Different, but together. Kara went quiet, staring at the drawings. Over the following weeks, Kate continued her teaching. More Keth came to learn from her. She showed them how to make better water filters using sand and charcoal, how to build structures that used the trees as support instead of cutting them down, how to plan and think ahead instead of just reacting. She also learned from them. The Keth taught her their language properly. They showed her which plants were safe to eat and which would kill, how to read the weather patterns of this violent world, how to move silently through the jungle. Kate absorbed everything, her mind cataloging information the way she had been trained. The young warrior who had looked back at her that first day was named Kyle. He came from the mountain clans but had joined Dren's village years ago. Kyle was interested in Kate's fighting techniques. She showed him tactical thinking, how to read terrain, how to plan an attack instead of just charging forward. Kyle learned fast. He started teaching other warriors what Kate taught him. Soon, a small group was training together, practicing coordinated movements and defensive positions. Dren watched these sessions with interest. 2 months after Kate's arrival, she had a conversation with Dren that would change everything. Her Keth language was good enough now for real communication. She asked him why the clans fought each other instead of the planet's many dangers. Dren's answer was simple. Because that is what clans do. We take what we need. Others try to take from us. It is the way of survival. The journey to the River Clan took 2 days through dense jungle. Kate traveled with Kyle and 3 other warriors. Every step was still a battle against gravity. But her body had adapted. She could move now without constant pain, though she would never match the Keth's natural strength in this crushing weight. The River Clan lived near a wide stream that cut through the jungle. Their village was larger than Dren's, maybe 60 individuals. Their leader was a female named Maya, scarred and suspicious. She met Kate's group at the village edge, with 20 armed warriors. Maya spoke with Kyle in rapid Keth. Kate caught enough to understand. Why bring an alien here? What trick is this? Kyle explained that Kate had helped defend Dren's village, that she offered knowledge and help. Maya laughed. She said Dren must be desperate to trust a Skyfaller. But she was curious enough to listen. Kate had one chance to make her case. Kate had prepared for this. She had studied the River Clan from what Dren told her. Their main problem was disease. The river water made them sick, and they lost children every season. Kate asked Maya to show her the sick ones. The River Clan had no real medical knowledge. They used prayers and hope, watching their people suffer. Kate examined the sick and recognized the symptoms. Waterborne parasites, probably from drinking river water without treatment. She showed Maya how to build a proper filter using sand, gravel, and charcoal from their fires. She demonstrated boiling water in containers made from hollowed stones. Simple things, but the River Clan had never thought to try them. Kate explained that tiny creatures in the water cause sickness, things too small to see but deadly nonetheless. Maya was skeptical, but desperate enough to try. Kate spent 3 days with the River Clan, teaching them water treatment and basic sanitation. She showed them how to dig waste pits away from their water source, how to wash hands before handling food. Concepts that seemed obvious to Kate, but were revolutionary to the Keth. Within a week, the sick began to recover. No new cases appeared. Maya's attitude changed. She invited Kate to her fire and asked what the Skyfaller wanted in return. Kate's answer surprised her. An alliance. Not servitude. Not tribute. Partnership. Dren's village had good hunters and strong warriors. The River Clan had access to better water and more fish. If they traded instead of raided, both would benefit. Maya considered this. She asked about other clans. What happens when the Mountain Clan raids us? Do we run to Dren for help? Yes, Kate said simply. And when someone raids Dren, he comes to you. That is what allies do. The concept was foreign to Maya, but she was practical. She agreed to a trial. 1 season of trading with Dren. If it worked, they would continue. If not, they would return to the old ways. Kate returned to Dren's village with the news. Dren was amazed that Maya had agreed to anything. He asked Kate how she convinced the stubborn River Clan leader. Kate smiled. She said she solved a problem Maya could not solve alone. That is the foundation of alliance. Show people you can help them, and they will listen. Over the next months, Kate worked tirelessly to make the alliance succeed. She traveled between villages, teaching both clans to coordinate. Dren's hunters showed River Clan warriors better tracking techniques. River Clan fishers taught Dren's people new ways to preserve food. Small exchanges, but they built trust. Other clans noticed. Some were hostile, seeing the alliance as a threat. But others were curious. A small mountain clan led by an elder named Ben approached Kate. They were struggling with predator attacks. Large creatures from the higher elevations were raiding their village at night. Kate studied the problem. The mountain village had no defensive walls, no coordinated watch system. She taught them to build a perimeter fence using the thick jungle wood. She established a watch rotation so someone was always alert. She showed them how to use fire and noise to scare away predators without fighting them. When the predators came next, the mountain clan was ready. They drove off the attack without losing anyone. Ben was impressed. He asked to join the alliance. Now there were 3 clans working together. Kate established a council system. Leaders from each clan met monthly to discuss problems and share resources. It was rough at first. Old feuds and suspicions died hard, but Kate mediated, finding compromises and building bridges. Not everyone wanted peace. A powerful clan leader named Vrek controlled territory to the south. He had 4 clans under his dominance, through fear and strength. Vrek saw Kate's alliance as a direct challenge to his authority. He sent messengers warning the allied clans to break their partnership or face consequences. Kate asked Dren what he wanted to do. Dren surprised her. He said the alliance made his people stronger and healthier. They had better food, better defenses, better lives. He would not abandon that because Vrek made threats. Maya and Ben agreed. The alliance would stand. Vrek's response was swift. He raided the mountain clan, burning their crops and taking their stored food. It was a message. Submit or starve. Kate called an emergency council. Ben wanted revenge, wanted to raid Vrek back. Maya suggested they hide, avoid confrontation. Dren asked Kate what humans would do. Kate thought carefully. She said humans would defend what they built, but not with random violence, with strategy and planning. She asked if they trusted her to train their warriors properly. All 3 leaders agreed. Kate began the real work. She selected warriors from all 3 clans, mixing them together. This was important. She wanted them to see each other as allies, not just temporary partners. Kara volunteered immediately, along with Kyle and 20 others. Kate trained them in human military doctrine, adapted for the Keth's strengths and Viridian 7's conditions. She taught formations, flanking maneuvers, coordinated attacks. She drilled them on, following orders and working as a unit instead of individual fighters. The Keth learned quickly. They were natural warriors. They just needed structure and tactics. Kate also taught them logistics, how to move supplies, how to maintain equipment, how to plan campaigns instead of just battles. 3 months after Vrek's raid, Kate had a trained force of 50 warriors. Not a large army, but disciplined and coordinated. More importantly, she had warriors from different clans fighting as one unit. That was the real victory. Vrek raided again, this time targeting the River Clan's fishing grounds. He brought 30 warriors, expecting easy prey. Instead, he found Kate's trained force waiting. The battle was short and decisive. Kate's warriors used the terrain, drawing Vrek's fighters into a narrow valley. They attacked from 2 sides, using coordinated strikes that overwhelmed the raiders. Vrek's warriors broke and ran, leaving behind wounded and supplies. Kate ordered her forces to help the wounded, even enemy wounded. She told them that was the difference between warriors and raiders. Warriors had honor. The victory sent shockwaves through the region. Vrek, who had never lost a battle, had been beaten by an alliance of clans he considered weak. More clans approached Kate, wanting to join. Within 6 months of that first alliance with Maya, Kate had 10 clans working together. She established more than just military training. She created schools where young Keth learned reading and math using a written language Kate developed from their spoken words. She set up trade routes and exchange systems. She introduced specialization. Some clans focused on farming, others on hunting, others on making tools. Everyone traded for what they needed. The confrontation came during the dry season. 1 year after Kate's exile, Vrek had gathered his coalition of traditionalist clans, nearly 200 warriors who believed in the old ways of conquest and dominance. They marched on the Allied territories with clear intent: destroy the Alliance, kill the Skyfaller, return things to how they had always been. Kate received word of the approaching army from scouts she had trained. She called the council immediately. 10 clan leaders gathered in the central village that had become the Alliance's meeting place. The mood was tense. Some leaders wanted to scatter, hide their people in the jungle until Vrek passed. Others wanted to meet him head-on with everything they had. Maya pointed out they were outnumbered 2 to 1. Even with training, those were dangerous odds. Kate let them argue. She had learned that leadership meant knowing when to speak and when to listen. Finally, Dren asked her directly, what would she do? Kate spread out a map she had drawn of the territory. She showed them Vrek's likely path, the terrain they would cross, the places where a smaller force could use advantages. She explained that numbers only mattered in open battle, but if they controlled where and how the fighting happened, they could win. The council approved her plan. Kate had 1 week to prepare. She mobilized every trained warrior in the alliance, roughly 100 fighters. Not enough to match Vrek head-on, but enough if used correctly. She divided them into 4 groups, each led by warriors she had trained personally. Kara commanded one group, Kyle another. 2 Keth warriors named Jake and Lynn led the others. Kate's strategy was simple. Avoid direct confrontation. Use hit-and-run tactics. Make Vrek chase them through difficult terrain. Tire his warriors, stretch his supply lines, force him to fight on ground of their choosing. The first contact came 3 days later. Vrek's army was moving through a narrow valley, confident and loud. Kara's group hit them from the ridgeline with rocks and spears, then vanished into the jungle before Vrek could respond. Light casualties. But it made Vrek angry. He ordered his warriors to pursue. That was exactly what Kate wanted. Angry enemies made mistakes. Over the next 2 days, Kate's groups struck from different directions. They destroyed supply caches. They ambushed small patrols. They made noise and movement, making Vrek's army see threats everywhere. His warriors grew tired and nervous, jumping at shadows. Vrek was no fool. He realized what was happening and changed tactics. Instead of chasing, he marched directly for the central village where the Alliance Council met. If he could capture or destroy that, the Alliance would fall apart. Kate had anticipated this. She pulled all her groups back and concentrated them at a place called the Stone Valley. It was a natural bottleneck, with high walls on both sides, and only one easy entrance, perfect for defense. She positioned her warriors along the valley walls and at the narrow entrance. They built barriers from logs and stone. They prepared piles of rocks to roll down on attackers. Kate made sure every warrior knew their position and their job. No confusion, no hesitation. When Vrek arrived and saw the trap, he hesitated. He knew attacking through that valley would cost him warriors. But he also knew turning back would make him look weak. His coalition was built on fear and strength. Show weakness, and it would crumble. He attacked. The Battle of Stone Valley lasted 3 days. Vrek threw wave after wave of warriors into the valley. Kate's defenders held the walls and rained down stones and spears. The Keth fought with discipline Kate had drilled into them, holding formation even when enemies broke through. On the second day, Vrek tried to flank them, sending warriors to climb the valley walls on both sides. Kyle's group was waiting. They pushed the climbers back, sending many falling to their deaths. The valley floor became a nightmare of wounded and dead. Kate hated it. She had come to Viridian 7 wanting to build, and here she was directing a battle that killed dozens. But she also knew this was necessary. Vrek would not stop until he was stopped. Peace sometimes required fighting for it. On the third day, something unexpected happened. A clan from Vrek's coalition, one that had been forced to join through threats, suddenly turned on Vrek's warriors. They had seen their people die for one leader's pride while the Alliance offered something different, something better. The defection caused chaos in Vrek's ranks. Other clans began questioning why they were fighting. Vrek tried to rally them, but the damage was done. His coalition was breaking. Kate saw the moment and acted. She led a coordinated push from all positions simultaneously. Her warriors came down from the walls and charged through the valley entrance in formation. The disciplined attack broke Vrek's remaining forces. They scattered into the jungle, leaving Vrek standing alone with a handful of loyal warriors. Kate approached him with Kyle and Kara at her sides. She was exhausted, covered in dust and blood, but she walked straight to Vrek. He raised his weapon, ready to fight to the death. Kate surprised him. She lowered her own weapon and spoke clearly in Keth. She said this did not have to continue. His warriors were beaten, his coalition broken. He could keep fighting and die, or he could listen. Vrek spat on the ground. He said he would never join her alliance of weaklings. Kate shook her head. She said she did not need him to join. She needed him to stop raiding. The old ways were ending. The Keth could keep killing each other over scraps, or they could build something that lifted everyone up. The choice was his. Vrek looked around at the valley filled with dead and wounded from both sides. He saw his broken coalition. He saw Kate's warriors standing in formation, disciplined and ready. He saw clan leaders who had served him now standing with the Alliance. He made his choice. He dropped his weapon. Kate ordered him and his remaining warriors escorted back to their territory with a message. The Alliance was open to any clan that wanted to join peacefully. Those who wanted to raid and conquer would face the same result Vrek did. The victory at Stone Valley changed everything. Within a month, 20 new clans approached the Alliance. Some had been part of Vrek's coalition. Others were independent groups that saw which way the wind was blowing. Kate welcomed them all, but with conditions. They had to commit to the council system, to trade instead of raid, to send young warriors for training. The Alliance grew rapidly. 40 clans within 2 months. 60 within 4. Each new clan brought resources, knowledge, and people. Kate established regional councils to manage the growth, training local leaders to make decisions without always asking her. She also pushed hard on infrastructure. With more clans working together, she could tackle bigger projects. They built roads between villages using packed earth and stone. They created granaries for shared food storage. They established medical centers where healers trained in Kate's techniques could help the sick and wounded. The schools expanded too. Hundreds of young Keth learned to read and write now. Kate wrote textbooks covering everything from basic math, to military tactics, to farming techniques. She wanted knowledge spread wide, not held by a few. Kara had become one of Kate's most trusted advisors. The young Keth, who had approached her as a curious child, was now a general commanding hundreds. She had a natural gift for tactics and leadership. Kate relied on her heavily. Kyle led the engineering efforts. He took Kate's basic ideas and improved them, adding Keth understanding of local materials and conditions. He designed better buildings, more efficient water systems, and tools that worked with Viridian 7's harsh environment. 1 year after the battle, Kate stood on a platform overlooking what had been Dren's small village. It was now a town of hundreds, with proper buildings, clean water, schools, and defenses. Similar towns existed across the Alliance territory. The Keith were transforming from scattered tribes to an organized civilization, and they were doing it themselves. Kate had given them tools and ideas, but they were building the future. That was when the ships arrived. 3 Galactic Council ships hung in orbit above Viridian 7, their sensors sweeping the planet below. In the lead ship's command center, officers stared at their displays in confusion. The planet was supposed to be empty except for primitive animals. Instead, they detected settlements, organized structures, and what looked like thousands of intelligent beings. Commander Lisa Drake studied the data with growing disbelief. She had served with Kate Morrison years ago, had called her a friend. When Kate was exiled, Lisa had protested loudly and been disciplined for it. Now she was here to investigate strange signals from Viridian 7. The death beacon that should have activated within days was still transmitting, but the signal was all wrong. Lisa ordered her team to prepare landing craft. They were going down to investigate. The council wanted answers. On the surface, Kate stood in the central square of what the Keth now called Unity Town. Around her gathered the Alliance Council, 60 clan leaders, hundreds of warriors, and thousands of civilians, all of them looking to her for guidance. Kate addressed them calmly. She explained that ships from the stars had arrived. The same people who exiled her were now curious why she was still alive. They would come down soon to investigate. The Keth had to decide how to receive them. Dren spoke first. He said the Sky people had tried to kill Kate by sending her here. That made them enemies. They should be met with weapons ready. Maya disagreed. She said the Sky people had weapons that could destroy them from above. Fighting was foolish. Better to show strength through what they had built. The council debated for an hour. Finally, Kate made a suggestion. They would greet the visitors peacefully, but from a position of strength. Show them the Alliance was not a collection of primitives to be dismissed. Show them a civilization that deserved respect. The council agreed. They had 2 days before the landing craft arrived. Kate used that time to prepare. She organized a demonstration. Warriors drilled in formation in the central square, showing precision that would impress any military observer. Engineers displayed their water systems, roads, and buildings. Teachers brought students to show written language and mathematics. The message was clear. This was not a primitive world. This was a developing civilization. When the landing craft descended, Kate was waiting. She wore simple Keth clothing now, practical and suited to the world. Her body had adapted fully to the gravity. She looked different from the captain who had been exiled 2 years ago. Harder, more grounded, at peace. The landing craft settled in a clearing outside Unity Town. The ramp lowered. Lisa Drake emerged first, flanked by armed guards and council representatives. She wore her uniform and carried herself with military precision, but when she saw Kate standing there, alive and clearly in command, her professional mask slipped for just a moment. Kate stepped forward. She spoke in the common galactic language she had not used in 2 years. She welcomed them to Viridian 7 and to the territory of the Keth Alliance. Her voice was calm and confident. Lisa recovered her composure. She asked formally how Kate had survived on a Class-8 death world. Kate smiled. She said the council made certain assumptions. They assumed the planet was empty of intelligent life. They assumed she would die quickly. They were wrong on both counts. She gestured toward Unity Town. Would the delegation like to see what she had built? Lisa agreed. The council representatives were already scanning everything with their instruments, recording data. Kate led them through the town. Explaining as they walked, she showed them the schools where young Keth learned multiple subjects, the medical centers where mortality rates had dropped by half, the councils where clan leaders made collective decisions. One of the council representatives, a crystalline being, stopped at a building where warriors were training. He watched the precise formations and coordinated movements. He asked if Kate had created a military force. Kate said yes. The Keth needed to defend themselves from predators and hostile clans. She had taught them how. But she had also taught them when not to fight. Diplomacy and trade had brought more clans into the alliance than warfare ever could. Lisa pulled Kate aside while the council representatives examined the water filtration system. She spoke quietly. She said Kate had to know this looked bad. Uplifting a primitive species was against council law. They could charge her with more crimes than before. Kate met her old friend's eyes. She asked if the Keth looked primitive to Lisa. Did they look like a species that needed the council's protection? Or did they look like people building their own future? Lisa had no answer. She had seen the schools, the infrastructure, the organized society. This was not primitive. But it also was not natural development. Kate had accelerated their progress by centuries. The council delegation wanted to meet with Keth leadership. Kate arranged a formal meeting in the council chamber, a large building at Unity Town Center. 60 clan leaders gathered, with Dren, Maya, and Ben sitting at the head table alongside Kate. The crystalline council representative spoke. He said the council had questions about how this civilization developed so rapidly. He implied outside interference was obvious. Dren stood and responded in halting but clear galactic language that Kate had taught him. He said Kate had taught them many things, but the Keth had built this themselves. They had chosen to work together, chosen to learn, chosen to change. No one forced them. Maya added that before Kate arrived, the clans had been killing each other over scraps. Now they built together, and everyone had enough. That was not interference. That was help offered and accepted. The council representative argued this was exactly the kind of cultural contamination the non-interference protocol prevented. The Keth should have developed naturally. Ben, the old mountain clan leader, laughed at that. He asked how many more generations should have died in clan wars before it was acceptable to learn peace. How many children should have died from disease before it was acceptable to learn medicine? The debate continued for hours. The council representatives tried to frame Kate as violating protocols. The Keth leaders defended her and their own agency. They were not children who had been manipulated. They were people who had been given tools and chosen to use them. Finally, Lisa spoke up. She said the council needed to make a decision. They could treat the Keth as victims of illegal uplifting and place them under council protection, or they could recognize them as an independent civilization capable of making their own choices. The implications were clear. If the council chose the first option, they would have to manage Viridian 7 directly, provide aid, oversight, and protection. The costs would be enormous for a Class 8 world. If they chose the second option, they had to respect Keth sovereignty. Kate had been quiet during the debate, letting the Keth leaders speak for themselves. Now she added one more point. She said the council could try to enforce their ruling by force, but that would mean attacking a civilization that had done nothing except survive and build. The council would have to live with that choice in front of the entire galaxy. The council representatives withdrew to discuss. They returned 3 hours later with a decision. They would recognize the Keth as an independent species with developing civilization status. Kate could remain as an official advisor at the Keth's request, but she would be monitored. Viridian 7 would be open to limited trade and diplomatic contact. It was not everything Kate wanted, but it was enough. The Keth were recognized. The alliance would continue. She had won. That evening, Lisa and Kate sat together away from the others. Lisa asked what Kate planned to do now. She could return to human space. The exile was effectively over. The council had cleared the original charges as part of the deal. Kate looked out over Unity Town, lights beginning to glow as evening fell. She said she was staying. The Keth still needed her. More importantly, she needed them. For the first time in her life, she was building something that mattered. She was not going to walk away from that. Lisa understood. She said she would report back that Kate had chosen to remain as advisor. Then she asked what Kate's long-term goal was. Kate smiled. She said the alliance currently covered maybe a tenth of Viridian 7. There were hundreds of clans still scattered across the planet. Some would join peacefully. Some would need convincing, but eventually, she wanted to unite them all, create a true Keth nation that could stand among the galaxy's civilizations as equals. Lisa laughed. She said Kate always thought big. Then she asked seriously if Kate thought it was possible. Kate gestured to the town around them. 2 years ago, this had been a small village of 40 people fighting to survive. Now, it was a center of learning and trade for thousands. She said anything was possible if you committed to it. The council ships departed the next day. Lisa promised to stay in contact and help facilitate trade agreements. The council representatives left warning that they would be watching for any protocol violations. Kate agreed politely, knowing she would do what the Keth needed regardless of council opinions. In the weeks after the ships left, life in the alliance continued. New clans joined almost weekly now. Word had spread across Viridian 7 about the alliance and what it offered. Not everyone came peacefully. Some clans had to be convinced through shows of strength, but increasingly, Keth chose cooperation over conflict. Kate expanded the training programs, the schools, and the infrastructure projects. She also began working on longer-term goals. Basic industry using the planet's geothermal energy, better agriculture to support the growing population, a written code of laws that all clans agreed to follow. Kara was promoted to lead the entire defense force, now numbering over 1,000 trained warriors from dozens of clans. Kyle took charge of all engineering projects. Other Keth leaders emerged, taking on responsibilities that Kate had once handled alone. That was important to Kate. She did not want to be irreplaceable. She wanted the Keth to build a civilization that would outlast her, that would thrive whether she was there or not. 6 months after the council visit, Kate stood on the same platform where she had watched the ships arrive. Unity Town had grown again. Beyond it, she could see roads leading to other Alliance settlements. Smoke from hundreds of cooking fires rose into the orange sky. Dren joined her, moving with the slight limp he had earned in the battle against Vrek. He asked Kate if she ever regretted staying. Kate thought about that question. She had given up her old life, her career in the military, the chance to return to human space. But she had gained something more valuable. Purpose. Community. the satisfaction of building something real. She told Dren no. No regrets. The council had sent her here to die. Instead, she had found a reason to live. Dren nodded. He said the Keth had a saying. Sometimes the greatest gifts come from the darkest intentions. The council meant to destroy her. Instead, they gave her a world to shape and people who valued what she offered. Kate smiled at that. She looked at the modified death beacon that sat in a place of honor in the town museum. The Keth had insisted on preserving it as a reminder of where they came from. A plaque beneath it read in both Keth and Galactic Standard, "They sent one to die. She taught us to live." Kara approached with reports on the newest clans requesting to join the alliance. Kyle had designs for a project to build bridges across the major rivers. The council was meeting tomorrow to discuss expansion into the eastern territories. There was always more work to be done. Always another challenge to face. Kate would not have it any other way. She had been exiled to a Class-8 death world to disappear. Instead, she had raised an army, built a civilization, and given the Keth a future they had never imagined possible. The council had wanted her gone. The Keth had wanted her to stay. She had chosen the Keth, and she was just getting started. The detection came from modified watchers Kate had positioned in the hills. Bright lights in the sky, moving with purpose. Ships. Galactic Council ships. Kate felt ice in her stomach. 2 years she had been on Viridian 7. 2 years they had left her for dead. Now they were back. The question was, why? She gathered the council and explained what was coming. The Keth did not fully understand galactic politics, but they understood outsiders arriving might mean trouble. They asked Kate what she wanted to do. Kate thought about running. She could disappear into the jungle, let the council think she was dead. But that would mean abandoning everything she built. The Keth would face the council alone, unprepared for what that meant. No. She had faced the council once before as a prisoner. This time, she would face them as something else entirely. As a leader of a civilization they had tried to erase, Kate ordered the Alliance to prepare. Not for war, for something harder. For first contact on their terms, the changes accelerated. Allied clans had better nutrition, better health, better defenses. Children survived who would have died before. Elders lived longer. The Keth saw with their own eyes that cooperation brought better results than conflict. Kate's death beacon still transmitted from where she kept it in Dren's village. She had modified it months ago, turning it into a record keeper instead of a death signal. Every alliance, every innovation, every success was documented and broadcast. She did not know if anyone was listening. She did not care. The council had sent her here to disappear. Instead, she was building something that would last. Vrek was not finished. Losing one battle had only made him angry. He began forming his own alliance, bringing together clans that feared change or resented Kate's influence. The conflict between the two coalitions became inevitable. Kate did not want war. She wanted to build, not destroy. But she also understood that sometimes you had to fight to protect what you built. She prepared her allied clans for what was coming, knowing that the real test of everything she created was approaching fast. Kate pointed at the trained warriors practicing nearby. She asked, what if there was a different way to survive? What if clans could trade instead of raid? Share knowledge instead of hoarding it? Build together instead of destroying each other? Dren laughed. But it was not a mocking laugh. It was the laugh of someone hearing an idea so strange they did not know how to respond. He asked Kate if she thought words could change generations of blood feuds. No, Kate admitted. But actions might. She proposed something simple. Let her travel to another clan, one that Dren had less hostility with. Let her offer them something valuable. Knowledge, help, whatever they needed. Not as a gift, but as trade. Start small. Build trust. Dren considered this for a long time. Finally, he agreed, but with conditions. Kate would go with an escort. If the other clan attacked, she was on her own, and if this failed, she would stop talking about clans working together. Kate accepted the terms. She knew she was gambling everything on an idea that might be impossible, but she had not come to Viridian 7 to simply survive. The Council had sent her here to die. She was going to do something they never expected. She was going to build something new. The leader turned and walked into the jungle. The others followed. One of them, younger than the rest, looked back at Kate. There was something in that look. Not hostility. Curiosity. Maybe. Then, they were gone, disappeared into the thick vegetation. Kate stood alone by the stream, processing what had just happened. The Council had sent her here to die. They had dropped her on a Class-8 death world with nothing and expected the planet to kill her. But they had made a mistake. They had assumed Viridian 7 was empty of intelligent life. They were wrong. Kate looked at the knife in her hand, then at the jungle where the natives had vanished. 1 month. She had survived worse odds before. She was a soldier, trained to adapt and overcome. This world wanted to kill her. These people might kill her, but she was not dead yet. She knelt by the stream and drank the filtered water. It was cold and tasted of minerals. Kate let herself smile for the first time since the trial. The Council thought they had won. They had no idea what they had started. 1 month. She would make it count.